What's up, gentlemen? Happy to see you guys for another episode of Blind Pig Podcast, courtesy of bgobsession.com. If you're following along, if you've just found yourself here, welcome. If you have been here before, we appreciate you coming back. Hook us up with a like, a share, a follow. Find us on all major socials as well as all major audio platforms, youtube.com, and of course at the mothership bgobsession.com. So, fellas, it was an ugly one. There was a couple things that I'm going to spin to a little bit of positive that I want to talk about, but as always, I will concede the floor to you gentlemen to initial reactions after that beatdown we took at the hands of the Atlanta freaking Falcons. Don't everybody go at once.
Yeah, I guess the biggest glaring things, we're not going to say anything that is earth-shattering that probably hasn't already been howled at the moon over the last 24 hours. But I think you can't only have the ball for like 2+ minutes in the opening quarter and win many of those. And I think that's something that Dan Quinn talked about, is starting slow, and that's just not the way to do it, especially on the road. And I think we even talked about that last week, that we can't start slow and get behind the curve. Because we actually ran the ball pretty well against them. We had 147 rushing yards, 6.7 yards a carry. We broke a big one. We had several long runs, as a matter of fact, but it's hard to keep pounding the rock when you're down, by 10 points and you can't hold and you can't sustain drives, or you can't get them off the field, probably is more accurate way of saying it. So I just thought I don't know what's going on with the defense. We've kind of had, I think Galdi put it about as straight up as you can put it, which is we played really two good defensive games, and we played two terrible defensive games against the Packers and then the Falcons. So I don't know if it's a Joe Witt thing. I feel like our defensive backfield, and again, we were without Percy Butler, we were without a couple other guys, with injuries. So I'm not putting it all on Lattimore, but they just, when Penix eats your defensive backfield alive, you got a problem. And the other last thing I'll say is, I think we're getting exposed in the short passing game, because even in the games we won this year, we got beat a lot on just the quick get rid of the ball on a short passing route. And, I think Bobby Wagner's been taking some heat of late, because as good as he is, he's not, 26 anymore, and he's struggling to close the gap and make tackles on guys with a head of steam. We just don't seem to have an answer for that quick passing game so far. So I don't know. It's looking kind of rough on the defensive side of the ball, to put it mildly.
I all day Sunday while I was watching the game, all I could think was that I had considered earlier last week that Atlanta was better than their record. And I think I made that argument on the board at one point in time that, somebody said, hey man, they're 1-2 and they just got blown out by the Carolina Panthers. I'm like, yeah, but they took the Bucs right down to the wire. And if it weren't for some place kicking issues, they win that game. And Tampa Bay went to the playoffs last year. And then they went into Minnesota and beat Minnesota, another playoff team last year. I think the Carolina game was just a weird anomaly. I really do. The other thing I think is that the Carolina game woke this team up. I'm not sure we will play a more focused football team the rest of this season than we saw in Atlanta on Sunday, because they just got embarrassed bad. And anybody with any professional pride wants to come out and do something spectacular after being embarrassed like that. And if you don't think that even the least professional football player has a tremendous amount of professional pride, you don't understand what it took to get to the NFL. That's the first thing. The second thing I'll say is, I don't know how you play defense against Bijan Robinson. I don't know how anybody plays defense against Bijan Robinson. I do know asking Bobby Wagner to cover him in the flat is asking to get beat up. But you know what? Asking 26-year-old Bobby Wagner to cover Bijan Robinson in the flat is asking to get beat up.
And that looked to me like, Bob, just to make a comment on that, that looked to me like I'm not sure he was supposed to be covering Bijan Robinson in the flat. He ended up covering him, but so that's the thing. Was that really the plan?
It occurred to me that we may have been trying to play some type of too deep defense there, where he was supposed to have closer safety help, and the safety was playing too deep. I don't know. Some type of a layered thing where we had an extra guy, in case Wagner missed. And of course, Robinson makes everybody miss at some point in time or another. The offense didn't play bad. We had some nice stuff. I mean, Mariota had a couple of moments. I wish he were a little more decisive. He ate the ball. He ate a sack a couple of times. I felt like he could have gotten rid of the football. We also had some stupid penalties that I don't feel like we had last year. Maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like we played pretty clean football last year. And this year it feels like just as we're starting to get something going, there's a stupid penalty that turns a 3rd and short into a 3rd and 12. And that
can we not have Zach Ertz? Can we have Zach have one game where Zach Ertz doesn't do some boneheaded I'm not paying attention penalty? I'm sorry. I know he's a great player, but I mean, you just cannot do that as a vet like he is,
Yeah, that false start was just. I stood in my garage and shook my head. I was like, "You got to be kidding me, man! What is he, an 11-year guy, and he's false starting? That just come on." I don't feel bad about this loss. I don't feel like we lost to a bad football team. I don't feel like we didn't show up. I just don't feel like we reached the intensity level necessary to play with a football team coming off of an embarrassing blowout defeat where they didn't even get on the scoreboard. I mean, I don't know. I expected them to have the team up further, and maybe that's a comment about the head coach that we came out and played. We stayed medium. Since we're debating the worst coaches in Washington history over the last 30 years, stay medium came back to mind earlier this week. Maybe we were just too medium. I don't know. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, there's not much more that I can add that you guys haven't said, to be honest with you. One of the things that burned me most about this game was the first 6 or 7 minutes, basically how we started. Atlanta had 29 total points in 3 games, and then comes in against us and just blows the doors off. They elected to take the ball on the opening drive. They basically wanted to set the tone for the day with that opening drive, and they did. Mm-hmm. And we get the ball back, and what do? We go 3 and out and give it right back to them. So I thought the story of the day was basically narrated in those first 5 or 6 minutes, and you kind of got the sense right there, the way the day was going to play out. The other thing that I wanted to say is, you think back to last year, I'm fairly certain in saying that we started out 3-1. We had those back-to-back games in Cincinnati and Arizona to go 3-1, and you really felt at that point that the team was on the verge of something special, and that things were just going to be different. It just had a different feel. And I feel like this year we are reverting back to some of our bad habits that we've traditionally seen in the past, specifically the lack of fundamentals. We had 12 missed tackles against the Falcons, penalties galore. That's plagued us all season. And those 2 things just go back to fundamentals. And last but not least, what was one of the things that characterized this team last year? It was the ability to control the ball and winning the time of possession battle. And Atlanta had the ball, I think, for almost 10 minutes more than us on Sunday. So all those little things that contributed towards making us the team that we were a year ago, they're just not there right now. And if we continue at this rate, I feel like we're just going to be one of these this year that just goes up and down and has little spells where we do well, spells where we struggle. It's ultimately going to lead to a lack of consistency if we can't get it together, and that's the super frustrating part about all of it.
Yeah, I think there were a couple. I'm going to finish on a negative, so I'm throwing out a positive. There were a couple good things in the game. I think Christian McCaffrey, he continues to show.
Luke McCaffrey?
Sorry. Yeah, I can't confuse those two. Luke is showing he can play wide receiver a little bit, and I think he set a Washington record for the most return yards in a game, like 199 return yards in a single game. So, I mean, it wasn't all horrific, but I feel like that game was not anywhere near as close as the score makes it sound if you didn't watch the game. And I'll just throw out one last little negative. We fumbled the ball 4 times in that game. Imagine how ugly it could have been if those fumbles, which we ended up recovering, if we had not recovered them. And that was Ertz fumbled, Debo fumbled, and Jalen Lane muffed 2 different punts. And he recovered one, I think, and somebody else recovered the other one. But so we dodged a major bullet, but it was still pretty ugly, even, given that we were able to recover those 4 fumbles. So you just can't, you can't go down to a road city and start slow and let them build up a lead and then try to play catch up and then make a lot of mental mistakes and make a lot of, costly errors like we did. So I don't know if there's any benefit to continuing to wallow in it, but there is. I said it last week, the difference between being 3-1 in the first quarter of the season and 2-2, it's not a big difference, right, on the record books, but it is a big difference in terms of the vibe. And now I think it was you, Bob, who was talking about how they were coming off a humiliating loss. Well, guess who's coming off a humiliating loss this week? It's the LA Chargers who lost to the Giants.
Yeah.
With a guy starting his first game under quarterback or under center. So, that's the kind of unfortunate thing is, that's just going to be a much more tougher game now because, I think because they got embarrassed by the Giants.
Yeah, that is distinctly possible. Just, one more thing that jumped out at me that I forgot to say earlier, and that's we really lost this game on 3rd down. We were 1 for 8.
Yep.
In 3rd down conversions. Last year, we led the league, or we were 2nd in the league in 3rd and 4th down conversion. Now, on 4th down, we were 2 for 2. But, we were brilliant on 3rd down last year. And this year, we're not. My guess is this goes back to opening weekend. I don't think we've been as crisp on 3rd down in any game as we were last year. I should go look at that. But to piggyback off your opening statement, Paul, those first 2 drives by the Atlanta Falcons are the difference in the scoreboard. Us not doing anything that opening drive and Atlanta getting points on both their first 2 drives. It's the difference in the final scoreboard. We played them toe to toe from our 2nd drive on, but we were already down 10-0.
And speaking of 3rd downs, you referenced our ability on 3rd down, Bob. When we had the opportunity at the end of the game to get the ball back when we were down 7, and I really felt like if we did get the ball back, I just thought Mariota was playing well enough that, he can realistically give us a shot to tie the game. On that last Atlanta offensive drive, they went 3 for 3 on 3rd down, and it was just maddening that we couldn't get the ball back into our offense's hand at that point.
Yeah.
So I will reflect. It was ugly, don't get me wrong, but I think that there's a couple things here, and I want to talk about a couple different layers. One, John and I were talking about this a little bit before. I think a lot of what we're seeing and a lot of what we're feeling is the fact that our eye line got changed last year. We overachieved in such a dramatic way last year that now we're confident that we can go into a game with a backup quarterback, missing both of our starting wide receivers, missing multiple starting safeties, missing multiple starting defensive linemen, missing our starting guard in Cosme, missing one of our starting running backs in Eckler, and we can bully people. And I just don't think it's a fair expectation for us to do that. That doesn't mean we should lose. Obviously, we felt like we could beat Atlanta. We played very well against the Raiders. We shoved on them, but Genty just exploded this past week and had the game of his young career. And we largely contained him in a very, very effective way. I think this is the dynamic of the parity that is the NFL. Nobody expected the Giants to beat the Chargers. The Chargers were the number one team taken in survivor pools this past week, right? You got Jackson Dart coming in. How many years were we that team that a rookie starts and makes his first start and he looks like an all-pro? Nobody's looking at the Chargers like a failure. Who expected Green Bay to lose this past weekend, right? Who expected Dallas to lose to the Bears? Who expected, of all teams, the Ravens to be, 1-3, and the Chiefs to have barely squeaked by to beat them at 2-2? And then the next week, Dallas and Green Bay tie at 40, right? There is a lot going on in the NFL. So I started thinking about it. And one thing that I think we all do need to remember also is this is basically our preseason. And I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but there's a lot of guys now that are just now getting to what would be considered a full game's worth of reps as they've come out of the preseason. All of the injuries we've got, all of the things that we've had go bad. But within 2 to 3 weeks, this roster, the starting depth chart, could look dynamically different than it did when we started this game this past weekend. With the most important one being JD5. He is the ultimate game changer. There's a reason Mariota's not a starter in the NFL. And I'm not blaming him for this, but at the same time, Paul, to your point, our first drive went 3-and-out. If we extend that first drive, how does that change the flow and the dynamic of the game? Is that a different situation with our starting quarterback, with Terry McLaurin, with all of these other factors? So we were beat up. Teams have bad games. I'm not dismissing, but we've talked about the negative. One of the other things I want to point out, explosive play. We're still seeing explosive plays in a way that we haven't seen them in years. We had a big run by C-Rod. We have a couple big returns by Luke McCaffrey. I mean, there were some big plays that we watched again that we have not seen in a long time. And I think when you look at things like that, that's when you get the big plays, it changes the dynamic of the game. How many big plays did we miss that would have effectively changed the outcome of this game, changed the momentum of the game, changed the feel of the game? The other big play was what went against us. To your point, Bob, how you have Bobby Wagner isolated against Bijan Robinson in the flat. That's a tough call. I want to believe that it wasn't intended that way. It was either a blown assignment or it was something got missed. I don't think you write that up when, Joe Witt's not writing that up as what's going to be the game plan. I can't imagine that that's the case.
I hope not.
So it does, and then now we can kind of move. It does. I got a couple questions for you guys. I have been a big-time supporter that we have not seen enough of Lattimore to draw a conclusion. I think we're seeing it. I don't think he's our number one corner. He shouldn't be. So now is it time to move him? And I'm not saying move him by cut him or trade, whatever. What I'm saying is switch him, put Amos in that. Is Amos at a point where you are confident and comfortable putting him in that role? Because you're not just going to go, you can't draft somebody in week 5 and come up with a replacement. So now it's a schematic adjustment. Are these the kind of things that they need to start working on now? Do we need to temper down Wagner's snap count and maybe get a McGee or somebody who's a little more athletic? And the kid that we drafted this year, his name is now escaping me, who's got a little bit more of that dynamic speed. That's the kind of tweak. And I'm wondering about, I think honestly, just by virtue of health, our offense is going to change Defensively, I think we might have to get a little bit more creative.
Somebody posted the comparison between, I think it was Nikki Jabal. I don't know if she came up with it or she posted it, but she posted a side-by-side comparison, 2024 defensive stats versus 2025 through the first 4 games. It's better than it was last year, believe it or not, especially against the run. And the one thing that was really clear is that our time of possession in 2025 is much lower than it was in 2024 in the first 4 games. So I think it's, as rough as we are on the defense right now, it's not. I think last year our offense was firing on all cylinders pretty quickly, and it probably covered up a lot of ugly because we were just outscoring teams. But I wanted to mention one other thing before we move on to the Chargers, and that is, we forget this because of the way the season ended, but last year in the second half of the season, we lost 3 straight games. The third of which, while we're in the thick of the playoff race, the third beatdown was by Dallas. And I guarantee you at that point in the season, you think it's bad right now at 2-2, as far as, the season's over, we're not going to go anywhere, we're not a playoff team. Well, I guarantee you it was a lot worse when we were in the middle of a 3-game losing streak and the most important time of the season. We went on to win 5 straight after that. So I'm not saying we're going to have that kind of magic this year, and I hope we don't have a 3-game losing streak, because other than that, Quinn and company have been pretty good about not having back-to-back losses. I think every other loss during their era, even though it's been a small sample size, we've come back from bad losses with a win. So I hope that's what happens in LA.
I think it's important, to your point, John, to remember, and I hate to put it this way, but it's the God's on. This is not Madden, okay? The team is not having 88 overall ranking, and that's what it's going to be until you add somebody. Like, this is sports, man. Like, this is the most unpredictable reality of what's out there. Is the same group of guys could play
this
the
is
same
living proof.
Right.
My team beat Florida State on national TV to move into the top 25. And trust me, if you're a Virginia fan, it is not a common thing. So sometimes
the same group of players could play the same game 10 times and they could have 10 different outcomes, right? Like, it's just the way that it is. One guy gets a hangnail. One guy, like, there's so many different factors that go into this, the effect of a game. And I'm not trying to minimize. The loss was ugly. I get it. It shines a spotlight on some concerns and things that might need to happen. But we also can't expect. We're 21 games into this thing. We can't expect to just be the bullies of the league and expect to just walk through anybody at this point. And I've fallen victim of my own confidence in that, to be honest with you, that I felt more confident and more than I probably should have. But we're comparing ourselves to teams like the Eagles and the Chargers and the Ravens and the Chiefs, and teams that have had general managers in place for almost a decade, head coaches in place for the same tenure outside of the Chargers, but building rosters and building the completion of their entire franchise. And we're 4 games into year 2. Like, let's be objective here and before we start worrying about getting totally over our skis about how it's all negative and problematic.
Sorry.
All right, boys.
That's a
Well,
fair
we got
point
a big game.
What did you say, John?
Big game coming up on Sunday. I said we got a big game coming up on Sunday. Let's talk about the Chargers matchup.
We do. I personally think they're going to be a little frustrated. They're going to come in. They're going to be ready. Oh, before we get totally into it, I mentioned this to John, and John didn't even know. I don't know, Paul, Bob, I don't know if you guys have looked at our schedule, this is a weird scheduling quirk. We just played our last 1 o'clock kickoff until December 7th. We do not have a 1 o'clock kickoff again until December 7th.
Seriously? That's weird.
Yeah. Here's the schedule. This Sunday at the Chargers, 4:25. The following week, Monday, October 13th, 8:15 kick. The following week, Sunday, October 19th, we kick off at 4:25 against the Cowboys. The week after that, on the 27th, 8:15 kick. I believe that's another Monday nighter. The following week, November 2nd, 8:20 kick. I think that's Sunday night. Then the Lions at home on the 9th. That's 4:25 kick. Then we play in Spain against the Dolphins at 9:30 a.m. Then we host the Broncos on Sunday Night Football on November 30th. And then on December 7th, we travel to Minnesota to play at 1 o'clock against the Vikings. So there's a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games before we see another 1 o'clock kick. Just an interesting little nugget there. I didn't know. For those of you who are worried about us being on national TV in prime time, you're going to get a lot of it fed to you very quickly over the next 2 months.
Yeah, that's no joke. Because those 4 o'clock games are going to be national as well. I mean, that's going to be the, Jeez.
All right, so we're coming in against the Chargers, playoff team last year. They're 3-1. They've had some pretty good wins. They beat KC KC at home, 27-21. Beat the Raiders in Las Vegas, 20-9. Beat the Broncos at home, 23-20. And then, of course, they lost by a field goal to the Giants. But they have a solid coaching staff. They got Harbaugh, Greg Roman, Jesse Minner is their DC. This is the second week in a row where we play a really good defensive team. They're 5th in the league in yards. They're 3rd in yards and 4th in points. Their passing defense is 5th in yards and 2nd in scoring. Their rushing defense is not as good. And then on offense, they have a top 5 to top 10 passing offense, not nearly as strong on the ground. So
with an arguable MVP candidate at quarterback.
Yep.
The most important person on the roster, we need to circle this guy. We need to make sure we pay attention to him. He is absolutely the most important thing is number 24, Benjamin St. Juste. Going up against old Benji. Paul's buddy. Sorry, the Canadian. I jokingly say that. I jokingly say that, but I think their secondary is susceptible. Cam Hart out of Notre Dame, I liked him a lot when he came out. Unfortunately, he was a first-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. He's in his second season. Dante Jackson, Nico Reed, St. Juste, Tarheeb Still, Elijah Molden, and Jasir Taylor are their secondary. So I think if you're going to get those guys, I think that's where it's going to – we got to get creative in the quick pass game, and then we need to create separation. I think that's going to be the biggest thing because in running, I think we need – if we can get another couple explosive runs out of our run game, and we got to do it early. We can't wait around until the middle of the second quarter down by 2 touchdowns to rip one off for 60.
Well, I have mixed feelings because on the one hand, they have not scored more than 27 points all season. And I think, that kind of makes you want it to be a lot of passes and attack them through the air. But by the same token, our rushing offense is really the strength of our team. Surprisingly, we're second in the league in yards and 6th in touchdowns when we rush the ball. And I think the problem last weekend was, again, we got behind so early that we really got away from it some, which that happens a lot in the NFL. But I really feel like a kind of a slug it out. If we can force them into a ball control, kind of slug it out type of game, I think that favors us. I think if we get into a let's try to outscore each other type game, with them having one of the best passing defenses in the league, and Jaden coming back. I assume Jaden is coming back, but who knows how he's going to play if this is his return. So I don't know. I really hope that they just decide we're going to run the ball 80% of the time and try to pound it down their throats, because they're not anywhere near as good against the run on defense. And we don't want to get in a shootout with Justin Herbert. I don't think we do. They've got some pretty good wide receivers. They have a really
John,
good
I feel
catch.
like you built this roster, man. I look up this roster. I think you've talked about half of their roster when we've talked about on podcasts. You know what I mean? With like targets and people that were like, we've talked Derwin James. Joe Alt was a big time name on this. Will Dissly we talked about on this podcast.
Yeah. I think Alt is banged up. I'm not sure he's going to be in there, but I think I heard that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention, and that's one of my keys personally in terms of this game. They got Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. Alt is definitely out this week with a high ankle sprain. Both of their premier offensive linemen, offensive tackles, are out. Joe Witt needs to get creative in terms of how we're going to get after this quarterback this week. I'd like to see more than just 4 guys rushing quarterback all the time. We need to get creative. We need to be able to rush off the edges and find some success with, making Herbert uncomfortable on Sunday. I think that's huge. The other thing too, we haven't led a game and granted it's only been 2 road games this year, but we have not led for 1 second on the scoreboard in road games this year. In Green Bay and Atlanta, we trailed from beginning to end. Obviously the start, a good solid start is imperative for this team. And I think that sometimes just gives the team a little bit of a different feel. It gives the team a bit more energy. If you can get out there, start quick, get a score, sometimes it changes the complete dynamic of the football game. Last but not least, I want to talk about Krosky Merritt. The guy's averaging, I think it's 5.9 yards per carry. He just seems like he does something every time he touches the ball, and he's a threat every time he touches the ball. We need to get him more involved. I know there are pass protection concerns and whatnot. But
you also wonder, Paul, do you wonder if he was maybe not 100% this past weekend?
Yeah, there's that. Yeah,
he had a knee, but
yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, like you said, something good happens. I mean, let's be honest. Him and Debo, when they're involved in the play, good things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What you feeling, Bob? How you feeling, brother?
I think the other reason why, Bob.
No, go ahead, John. You started your thought. Go ahead.
Well, I just think the other reason why the point was to get to the quarterback that Paul was making with their O-line being beaten up. They've got a pretty good trio of wide receivers. They got Quentin Johnston, who's their leading receiver. Keenan Allen is no scrub. And then they got Lad McConkey, who I think we did talk a lot about him previously, but he's not been a huge part of their offense so far. But that guy can play. So if we don't pressure Herbert, they could very well eat us alive. If Penix ate us alive, Justin Herbert with those receivers can definitely eat us alive. And like I said, Omarion Hampton is not only a pretty damn good running back, but he can catch the ball. He's like 14 of 16 on receptions so far. So he's a weapon that we need to be worried about.
I feel like this game starts and ends with Justin Herbert. I really do. If he has a good day, if he walks off the field at the end of the fourth quarter and his uniform's clean, odds are pretty good we're losing this football game. He's, I've heard plenty of talk, apparently just like Derek, that he's an early pick for the MVP, the way he's playing. Now he threw two INTs against the Giants on Sunday. And the turnover battle is part of the reason they lost. The Giants didn't turn the football over, and San Diego did. We're not taking the football away right now, which means we can't afford to give the football up on offense because there's not a lot of hope that we're going to go get one on defense, right? We're not going to even that out, I don't think. Now, turnovers in the NFL seem to be one of those things that are very streaky for teams. We could get hot on Sunday and have, a dozen takeaways over the next 5-6 games and totally forget about the fact that we went 3.5 games without a takeaway to start the season. But takeaways have always been a priority for a Dan Quinn defense, and we just aren't getting there. And so we can't afford to give it up. We've got to get to Herbert. It's just.
Hey, before you move on, to be fair, we've had some bad puck luck, and I know Paul, being from Canada, knows what I mean. We have had opportunity. I think there was Quan Martin had an interception that was negated by a penalty. I think we forced 2 or 3 fumbles just this past game, and we just were unable to finish. So I mean, it's kind of like.
And we played pass defense against ourselves. That one that got broken up out in the flat that was going to drop in his hands. And and the guy reached out and I was like, guys, stop fighting with each other. Just somebody.
Same team.
Yes. Oh my gosh. If you were on a soccer pitch, the goalkeeper would be yelling at you. Call the ball, damn it. Oh my gosh.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, Bob, but to your point, like we've been that close a handful of times to having those multiple turnover games.
And as much as I say that Herbert is a big part of, we've got to get to him and we got to, solve that problem. You look at their rushing stats from this last week. They only ran the ball 13 times, but they ran the ball for over 150 yards. Their starting running back only touched the ball 12 times, but he had 12 touches for, 124 or something. Granted, one of those was 12 touches for 128. One of those was for 54 yards. But even taking that out, that's 11 touches for 70.
A decent average.
That's still, 11 touches for 70 is still, over 7 yards a carry, maybe over 8 yards a carry. I don't know. My math is bad tonight. But this defense has got to find something because the San Diego offenses or they will always be the San Diego Chargers to me, no matter what we do. The Charger offense is lethal if you're not on top of your game. And to go back to something, I think it was Paul said, Lattimore's not a number 1 anymore. I think we've got to scheme differently. Lattimore's not bad. He just isn't the guy that's going to go find the best receiver on the other team and take him out of the game anymore. We can't expect that. Drake London made him look silly this last week. And San Diego's receivers are equally as good. And the quarterback's better. So we've got to figure something out. I didn't feel like I felt like I was giving Atlanta suitable respect last week because I didn't feel like it was going to be an easy game when I made my picks. I'm going to give the Chargers more respect this week.
Oh, well, I think I agree with you, Bob. I think, and at the end of the day, we need to piss off Justin Herbert. We need to annoy him. We need to be the little brother that is just needling his big brother until the big brother finally just punches him in the face and gets in trouble with dad, right? Like, we need to just be around him. We need to push him. We need to pull him. We need to look. I am not playing dirty, but I will forgive a 15-yard questionable roughing the passer penalty because you finish a play, right? Like, just to make him say, oh, I don't want that to happen again. Just something to get that in his head. He's a big guy, too. He is not Kyler Murray. He's a defensive end that has an arm on him. So it's gonna take. You're gonna have to beat him up. I wonder, do we see Preston Smith this week? Because we haven't seen him yet.
Oh,
Right.
well,
And this guy's an NFL caliber defensive end. He's not like what do
Baptiste's
you?
gonna be out, right? He tore a pectoral muscle, didn't he?
He tore a pec. He's done for the year. So we brought Preston Smith in. This guy's played quality. This guy has played at a high level multiple seasons. So do we see him this week? Where does he fit in? One thing I will say, just to look back, I do not need to see Von Miller out there on 1st and 10, right? Like, unless it's an obvious passing situation, I don't need Von Miller on the field. And I saw him on the field quite a bit on early downs this past game. And I don't know what the design was there. It obviously wasn't working because we're one of the worst teams when it comes to time to throw defensively. So where are we going to get that? Is it going to be the interior pressure? Because it's not coming from the edge. You know what I mean? And we can't. So there are some questions that need to be answered. And we need to answer those questions if we want to have a chance if we're going to be truly competitive in this football game. This game feels more like Green Bay than it does Las Vegas, right? Maybe
this week the pressure comes from the edge because of their offensive tackle situation.
Hey, and if that's the case, then that's fine. It just needs to happen. I don't care. I don't care if it's you, Bob. You go out there. I play football on the football. I don't give a damn where it comes from. It just needs to happen, right? Like, I don't care. Why are we not seeing Tyler Owens is a physical freak. Kane Medrano is a physical freak, right? These got Jordan McGee. I would be UFOing. Do you remember the old UFO defense from the Browns, where at one point they had their defensive tackle line up at middle linebacker and drop back and cover it? Just figure it out. I don't care where it comes from. We just got to figure. We've got to Paul's point. We cannot let Herbert have a clean jersey.
Contrary to what
you heard it here first, guys. Deron Payne in a 2-point stance, 5 yards off the ball.
Let's go. What are you saying, John?
Contrary to what Snapchatters believe, the Giants didn't beat them because of Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart had like 110 yards passing, 120. I don't know what he had, but
yeah,
I mean, he played fine. Don't get me wrong. But they beat him because the Giants' D-line was all over his ass and forced Herbert to make some bad decisions and put his face in the dirt. So if we want to have a chance against the Chargers, we better be trying to do something similar to them.
Yes, agreed. What are you thinking, Paul? You look like you're thinking.
No, I'm just absorbing. I don't know. I at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a tall task.
Paul, when a sponge absorbs dirty water, it's still absorbing too. Be careful what you're filtering through here.
Yeah. The thing that's scariest to me is not necessarily the talent on their roster, because they have a lot of talent on their roster and they're a very well coached team. I mean, Harbaugh always has his teams in the thick of the playoff race or going deep into the playoffs for that matter. The thing that worries me most, and we alluded to it earlier in the podcast, is that the Chargers are facing the same situation that Atlanta was coming into the game against us, that being a team just really pissed off and a team basically, I don't want to say desperation mode in September and early October, but a team that needs a win, right? And I guess we need to play that card this week, right?
Well, hold on, time out. Hold on. Let's elaborate on. Do they really need a win? And I'm not saying that they're going to sleep on us, but they're 3-0 in their division, right? Yeah. They're 3-0 in their conference because now they have a game up on Kansas City. They have two games up on Kansas City, a game up on 2 games up on the Raiders, and 2 games up on who was the other team they beat?
I don't think players look at it that way at all. I think they look at it as we got embarrassed by a team that we're better than. Our coach is one of the most fiery fucking.
Well, he's gonna be flipping tables in the locker room.
Coach. He's going to have all of them breathing fire coming out of the tunnel, and it will be real. It will be. So I think Paul's exactly right. We better show up, because if we don't, I think they could lay an ass whipping on us just based on that.
Paul,
fact that.
Not to break you. Finish your thought, brother.
No, it's the only other thing I was going to say is, we need to play that card now. We need to act like the more desperate team. Like, in Atlanta, early in that game, it felt like we were just going through the motions, and we need to play like we need it, because honestly, we do. When you look at the schedule over the next 8-9 weeks leading into December, when we only have division games, it's an absolute gauntlet of teams, and we have to be able to go into December at 500 or slightly above 500 to give ourselves a chance. I know I'm looking far into the future, but that's the reality of it. Like, we can very well play ourselves out of the playoff picture if we don't wake the hell up in the next few weeks.
That's a great point. I mean, we could do that now. I think everybody looks at this and thinks it's a long season, but the reality is, late in the season, we've got some hard games. We just have some hard games. I mean, we got to go to Minnesota. We've got to play Denver. Both of those teams are playing fairly well. Miami looked better last night. Granted, it's against the Jets, but they still look better. We got Detroit. Seattle and DC looks all right, I guess. Although Seattle's playing fairly decent football too. We're at Kansas City in late October. Yeah, this is not an easy schedule. And that at Kansas City game's just 4 weeks away, guys. Between them, we've got Chicago and Dallas. So
I don't think any of it's going to be easy. But I think that we also need to get to a point where we don't care, right? We need to go win the games we need to win. And I think, I was having a conversation with my uncle about this, and we were like, when are we going to get to the point where we are not hoping we catch somebody off guard? We need to Paul's point, we need to be the pissed off team. We lost the game we shouldn't have lost. We got dominated in a way we shouldn't have gotten dominated. I hope practices are harder. I hope film room is harder. To tell the truth Monday, tell all of the truth, Dan Quinn. Right? Like, show it and let's figure it out, because it's time to put up. And now is when the season starts. You're 2-2. We're back at 500. The season's not over yet. But you can very quickly find yourself in a bad spot if we just walk through these games and expect to win.
To speak to your hoping to catch somebody off guard, we caught everybody off guard last year that we're going to catch off guard as long as Jaden Daniels is under center. Right. We spent all our catch people off guard cards last year. There are no more left in the deck as long as Jaden Daniels is the quarterback in Washington. That would be like, all right, he's not Patrick Mahomes yet, but do you think anybody in the league sleeps on Patrick Mahomes? The answer is no. And I guarantee you, none of the teams out there looking Jaden Daniels and going, oh, he's just a second-year player. That's not happening. It may be happening with some other quarterbacks. I mean, I'm looking at the Houston Texans, and I'm not sure the quarterback down there scares anybody. He had a brilliant rookie year. He hasn't done anything since. Seriously. Daniels still scares people. And the Chargers aren't going to sleep on him this week.
All right. Well, we want to roll to predictions. What are you going to say, John?
I said, what's going to happen? Let's talk about
what you got, brother. Predict away, my friend.
Sorry, who'd you say, Derek? Who'd you say?
You, buddy. Paul.
Oh, I'm up. Okay. Yeah, I'm not feeling good about this week, to be honest with you. it sounds like it's going to be Daniels' first week back from injury. And the Jaden Daniels that we saw in those first few weeks was not the Jaden Daniels that we were accustomed to. So, I'm expecting good things from him, but not necessarily the brilliant elite things that we saw from him last year in his first game back here, coming off injury. I mean, the Chargers are, to me, a very well coached team. When we were going through our coaching search, I was very much on the, sign pick up Harbaugh train. Don't get me wrong, I love Dan Quinn and everything, but I have the utmost respect for him as a coach and his ability to prepare his teams. I'm just not confident with this defense right now. It's not going in the direction that we would like it to. And I just think it's going to be a very tall order against the Chargers. I can see, I don't know, like a 27-20 type game. I'm gonna say San Diego, LA, San Diego, whatever you want to call them.
All right, brother Bob, what you got?
Long flight to the West Coast. We haven't done well on the road this year. Chargers are pissed off. I think I'm probably in the same camp Paul's in, right? I gave Atlanta respect last week, but I thought we'd figure out a way to win it. We didn't figure out a way to win it. I think we give the Chargers plenty of respect this week too, but I don't think we figure out a way to win it. I don't think we figure out a way to get to Herbert. I think he beats it. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, let's it's going to be fairly close, but it won't feel as close as it is. 24-21 Chargers.
All right. I'll go next. I unfortunately agree with you guys. My head, the analytic side of my head agrees with you guys. I think they're a better football team right now. I think they have a quarterback that is MVP caliber. I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to slight Jaden when I say that. It's just the God's honest truth. He's been in the league multiple years. Jaden's in his second season, coming off an injury. There's a lot of things that are working that he's not 100% where he could be. I think it's going to be a tough road. It feels, like I said earlier, it feels a lot more like the lead into the Packers game than it does the lead into the Raiders game. I don't know that it's going to be that dominant because I want to have faith in our coaching staff and our ability to, be a competitive football team. I think, but I think it's too much. We're going to their house. This is not exactly like we're going to travel. It's a fan base, all of those things. So I think it's going to be, I hate to say this, but it's going to be like Chargers 31, Commanders 23. I think it's a convincing win. I hate to say that, and I hope I'm wrong. And I hope you guys get to hit me in the face with a pie next week. But it's just a lot to ask them to do it. Go across the country with the injuries we've got, with the struggles we've had, and expect more. And maybe this is our Eagles moment where we end their winless, you know what I mean? Their undefeated streak and shock the world. But I'll be rooting for it. I'm just not betting on it. What do you got, John?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, I think the way you win this game is you go in there and you pound the football down their throat and you don't stop pounding because they're not that good at their league average in run defense. And I just hope that's what we do. And I think the other part of that is you have long drives. You do better than 1 for 8 on third down, by the way. Hopefully, I think that's what Jaden gives you, that Mariota doesn't per se, which is he's unbelievable on third down and making things happen. So if we can sustain drives and pound the ball and limit them, keep the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands, and we're great in the red zone. I don't know if you guys know that. I think we're like, I have it here somewhere. We're close to 100% in the red zone.
Yeah, our problem is getting to the red zone.
That's right, but that is true. Once we get there. So, but anyway, saying all that, I'm really, one of you said head over heart. I can't really convince myself that that we're going to do all the things I just said. And I think the wild card is Jaden, because who knows what the hell we're going to see from Jaden. We know Jaden can change a game all on his own if he's really Jaden and having a Jaden day, but we haven't, like Paul said, we haven't seen that yet this year. We could see it, then that's a game changer. If he comes in there and does Jaden things, then it's, anything can happen. But I can't really pick us. I just think they're a better team. They have injuries as well, so it's not like they're completely healthy, especially on the O-line. But I just see it being a game where it's competitive, but we just can't quite get it done, and they beat us like 27-24. But I'd love to be
27-24. All right, well, I'm going to take a moment before we sign off, because this might be the first time in years that we've all picked against us. I will throw it, and John, you kind of talked about it, but I'll throw it to you, Paul. I just want to revisit to end this in a positive note. Washington wins if what? So
Washington.
If we're going to pull this off, how does it happen? So forget the prediction. What do we need to do to make it happen?
If Jaden runs for more than 100 yards, Washington wins.
Okay.
He's done that.
I will go in the turnover department. If Washington creates at least 2 turnovers, we win in a very, very tight game.
So, all right. Is that 2 turnovers or 2 plus 2 in the turnover margin?
Yes, plus 2 in the turnover margin. Let's call it that. Sure.
All right. What you got, brother Bob? Washington wins if
3 or more sacks of Justin Herbert.
All right.
We get to Herbert at least, because if we get him 3 times, we probably knocked him down 9. And now he's looking around. So, but we got to get home at least 3 times.
All right.
And that may feed Paul's
I will
turnover.
say I will say Washington wins if we hold the Chargers under 23 points. Now, that's kind of a generic thing because all of the things that you guys are talking about have to happen to make that happen. But I think that's kind of the point, is if we can hold them below 23, I think we can beat them. But I don't think, to John's point, we're going to win a shootout. So, LAC 24.
My serious answer, because we know they're not going to rush Jaden. They're not going to do a lot of Jaden running coming off of a sprain, a ligament sprain, even if he starts. But I'll say if our running backs have 200 yards of rushing in the game, we win.
All right. Looks good. So Paul thinks, despite his prediction, that Washington can win with plus 2 in the turnover margin. Bob, 3+ sacks. Derek with 23 or less points scored by the Chargers. And John, if we can put up 200 yards rushing by the running back specifically. Are you putting Debo into that?
Yes. I'll just say not including Jaden, because I don't think Jaden's going to run a lot. I would hope he's not going to run a lot.
All right. 200 yards rushing by non-Jaden. We win the game. All right, cool. Let's not end it on a negative note. Last thing is to tie up a couple loose ends. We did sign Robbie, formerly Anderson, now known as Robbie Chosen, to the practice squad, wide receiver. Probably does not bode well for Noah Brown, but I don't know what that means. I'm not expecting him to walk in and be some kind of a savior to the franchise. And the other note is Enforcer, brother Enforcer. As we sign off, we're thinking about you, my friend. You're in our heart, and I would be remiss if I didn't call you out and say we miss you. We love you, and we're holding on to you. So, brother, we're with you, and as you go through what you're going through, we're here for you, man. Well, fellas,
Hey,
that'll
let's
put us
hope that the Commanders bounce back like Matt Gay.
Absolutely. All right, boys. Well, as we wrap it up, as always, it's been a pleasure. Good to see you. If you made it this long, share a drink with us as we mix it up. You can find us on all major social media platforms, all major podcast platforms, bgobsession.com, youtube.com, and pretty much anywhere you can search Burgundy and Gold Obsession. So as we sign off, boys, I'll say it. That'll do, pigs. That'll do.